G'day guys, my name's Mike. I'm from Hadean. We're an engineering company with a focus on distributed computing. We're based about 10 minutes that way down the road, so if you guys want to have a chat afterwards, just let me know. And yeah, I'm here to talk about building a future in the cloud and what we've seen, heard, and are working on in cloud gaming. So I think a lot of the time we talk about cloud gaming and in particular streaming as a near future thing, but the reality is it's already here and now. We've already got a lot of games that are either streaming partially or wholly in the cloud. And now we've got all of this corporate inertia running behind it, right? We've got all of the cloud-based giants, Microsoft with Project xCloud, Google with Project Stream, Amazon with their rumored offering, but we've also got hardware offerings, hardware companies like NVIDIA dabbling in the space. We've got studios like EA. We've even got telcos like Verizon expanding the footprint of the gaming competitive landscape. And I suppose it's particularly telling when you hear someone like Netflix talk about how their biggest competition these days isn't from HBO, it's from the likes of Fortnite. So we're at an inflection point, and I think it's a really exciting time. And if we talk about it in the context of what the gaming industry is trying to achieve, obviously there are 2 billion people in the world who play video games today. That's roughly 1 in 4 people on the planet, which is kind of insane when you think about it. And as Satya Nadella astutely points out from Microsoft, neither he nor anyone else is going to sell 2 billion consoles. So at a very functional level, the introduction of ubiquitous streaming platform is about building a gaming platform that a lot more people have access to. So taking a AAA experience and putting it on the devices that people already own and use. So for sure there are going to be edge cases like esports where the minutiae of lag isn't kind of applicable from day one. But infrastructurally, the advent of 5G is going to help a lot. And the fact is that kind of 80% of the internet can already play these streaming games in some capacity. So right now we see a lot of these companies transcribing existing libraries into a streaming distribution format, which in many ways is kind of the lowest common denominator of what cloud gaming can offer. But this is still a very powerful thing, right? In terms of expanding the footprint from about 500 million active players to 2 billion. And not just at a commercial level, but at a creative level, when we talk about what we're trying to achieve as game makers, our whole mission is about kind of creating something that's interesting and beautiful and putting it in the hands of as many people as possible. So this is a hugely positive development for all of us, I think. And I think one of the most understated components of this shift is the ability to hop in and out of games instantly without any friction. This is something that we saw quite astutely that Google did with the Project Stream beta that ran last year with Assassin's Creed Odyssey. You could go in the browser, click play, and you're in it. It's a game-changing shift in a lot of different ways. Commercially and from a marketing point of view, the ability to one-click trial or purchase a game touches on a lot of obvious points, I think. But it also introduces new possibilities in terms of pushing the world events, kind of integrating with other games, having call to actions that link within your game into other ones as well. And it also introduces new behavioral dynamics, right? I think some of the most interesting points are what this means from a social perspective. So today there are about 660 million people watching gaming streams a month, but if they have the ability to kind of click and enter a game, that changes the dynamic completely. It makes interactive media kind of the default. It makes it incredibly more participatory. So as soon as a player can frictionlessly watch, join, and play one streaming game on a device that they own, they're going to start expecting it from every other title that they want to play. So you can imagine that if you're on the bus ride home, instead of checking your Instagram feed before the next stop, you scroll through a feed of all your friends and favorite streamers' live game streams, find one you like, jump into it. As soon as you do that, you automatically start broadcasting your own gameplay. Maybe your mate at home on his or her couch sees it and wants to join you as well. And that's kind of the reality that we're driving towards. This is, we're starting at day one in terms of just transcribing existing libraries, but in this respect, the cloud removes the delineation from interactive, non-interactive, and social media and replaces all of this stuff with something that's a lot more powerful. Looking further afield in terms of a design perspective, today you can play Fortnite on your smartphone. It's pretty damn good, but the control scheme will never be as high fidelity as PC setup, even a console gameplay. Obviously, Epic mitigates this with a lot of fine-tuning and balanced mechanics. But what if instead of just transplanting an existing game across multiple devices. We created something that was bespoke and more tailored for each environment. So imagine you're on this bus again, you see your feed, you jump in, your mate joins you as well. They're at home, maybe they've got a boots on the ground FPS experience. You're playing a base building game on your smartphone, but you're existing in kind of a persistent game world. So they're a dot in your strategy game, and kind of all the base building blocks that you're dropping in are giant monoliths in their environment. So these are two separate games with optimized mechanics designed specifically for those platforms, but they overlap and still let you talk and interact in real time in one space. That's an incredibly powerful and moving gaming experience. And it might seem far-fetched, but there are a lot of interesting precursors that are already available with similar design aspirations and elements. So if you consider something like EVE Online, it's set in an ambitiously persistent world. There's a dynamic economy, and it's quite a living and breathing ecosystem. They set the world record last year for the most concurrent players in a match. But in their expression, it was a suboptimal experience, right? And that's because their game's built on very creaky tech. There's no real-time combat, for example. Everything's time-dilated. But if you think about it, why do people love it? How's it survived for almost 20 years now? And the basis of that is, instead of a theme park, CCP created a playground, much looser structure with a lot more emergent qualities, where they'll drop in new toys every now and then, and they'll see what their players do with them, and that informs kind of their roadmap and the product development. So their entire game is designed around an emergent experience. And if you think about it, emergence creates these truly memorable moments, which are the most valuable currency in our profession. As a player, if you know that your actions have real consequences, you become much more emotionally invested. Instead of playing a game, you feel like you're living inside an immersive world. So I think that's what cloud gaming can deliver on a much more powerful scale. And it doesn't necessarily have to be tied to streaming as we know it. That's kind of a format play. But there's a broader conversation about what cloud gaming can offer. And I think principally the scalability of the cloud removes the hard technological ceiling that a lot of the time prejudices our design thinking. So as a very basic example, a lot of the times there's a delineation between my game can only be a smaller, complex world, or I can have a larger sandbox with a lot more simpler mechanics. But the cloud lets you do both. So it lets you easily create games with unbounded worlds, thousands of players, millions of entities, highly complex cross-server physics and AI, and a lot of this emergent multi-scale gameplay that we talked about beforehand. So it's not quite the oasis yet, but these are all things that we've kind of realized and stress-tested on our own technological platform, the Aether Engine. To realize this, however, we need to treat the cloud as a first-class citizen. We need to approach cloud first as a default requirement when we're building a game. It becomes our new baseline. And if you think about it, in a world where players can instantly one-click join a game, you need to be 150% certain that your technology can scale, and especially to an order of magnitude greater than what we're typically experiencing at the upper bounds of the gaming industry. So think about it at a practical level. How many of us are really ready for this shift? Do you know how you're going to load balance between instances? Do you have a DevOps team that's permanently on call to orchestrate everything you need? Do you have a strategy to handle cross-server physics, distributed AI? Is your content pipeline agile enough to keep up with the cadence of the emergent gameplay that your players are co-authoring? How are you going to tackle redundancy? There's a whole list of questions. A lot of them are hard to crack, but perhaps a few of you are already feeling this if you're kind of playing in the MMO multiplayer space. And if so, condolences, I empathize with you, I feel your pain. But it definitely underscores the importance of building a game on something that's truly dynamic. So this is kind of a segue into kind of our approach from a technological perspective. And our technology is predicated on being able to deliver a game experience that can dynamically scale. So if you think about the room that we're in, if every one of us kind of goes into one corner of the room, our technology is built around a distributed octree, which is a way of decomposing three-dimensional space. So if we all rush into a corner, you'll kind of see this room kind of decompose into a lot finer, more granular elements that allows it to be rendered in a lot more sophisticated manner. Meanwhile, the empty side of the room will be done in like a lot more coarser fidelity. From our perspective, this matches to kind of the dynamic spinning up and spinning out of compute resources. It allows you to distribute components and SDKs that you're already using, whether that be physics-based, whether that be AI-based, lets you plug into existing cloud engines. From our point of view, we're an agnostic platform, so we're never going to tell you how to make your game, how to run your game. But the reality is, as we move into this cloud gaming era, our infrastructures will be tested daily, and quite aggressively so. And so it's important to maintain this agility that, in my opinion, isn't currently being served by the way that the technological stack's been composed and is being applied in the industry right now. So ultimately, our goal for you is to consistently be able to bring your most ambitious projects to life. I think the best part of my job is to talk to developers and studios about the idea, right? Everyone's got the idea, which is their dream game. Unfortunately, a lot of the times, the idea is something outside of what they're currently building. A lot of the times, because of technological constraints, it's something that sits on a shelf and gathers dust. Or, even worse, sometimes it's something that people have tried to build, and because of the obstacles that they run into, it's death by 1,000 cuts scenario, where the idea starts being whittled down to a much more bastardized version of what it could be and what they originally intended for. To me, that's the biggest thing that cloud gaming can deliver, the chance to turn the idea into a reality without any compromises, and the chance to do it right. So I'm very, very stoked about where it's headed. I'm very excited about the medium and what it means for the industry. And most of all, I'm excited to see what all of you guys are going to build with it. Thanks so much.